It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine, indeed. I'm your host, Brian Cameron, bringing you all the latest Star Wars news from across the galaxy in partnership with Fantatrax.com, your number one news resource for Star Wars. This week's show is going to be a little bit different because rather than covering the bulk of last week's news, we're going to focus on a couple of stories and then we're going to have a little look back at things that could have happened in 2020 that didn't. So let's get straight to the bullet points. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the terrible news this week of the passing of Boba Fett actor Jeremy Bulloch. In this week's Jabba Court, we'll be looking at The Mandalorian Chapter 16. We saw all the characters team up to try and rescue Grogu, and a certain Jedi also made a return. And rounding out this week's show will be the last round at the Cantina, where we're going to have a look at the Book of Boba Fett, and we're going to ask, if you could Boba Fett one Star Wars book for Christmas, what would it be and why? And to join me this week to discuss all these topics, the two Marks from Making Tracks, Mr. Newbold and Mr. Mulcaster. Welcome to the show, guys.
Evening
Hello.
or morning. Morning.
Mornings, always morning in Tatooine. The suns are always up. So let's, I reckon, just move straight on to the horrible news this week of the passing of Jeremy. And you guys, obviously, we all knew Jeremy very well from the convention circuit. When we heard the news, we were obviously all devastated. Mr. Newbold, what was your feelings this week?
Obviously, terribly sad. I mean, he'd not been well for a while, as everybody knew. He'd stepped back from the convention scene a couple of years ago, which was a sensible decision and the right thing for him and Maureen. But despite that, of course, we've lost one of the nicest people that's ever been associated with Star Wars, to be honest. He was just easy to talk to, always had a story, fun to hang out with, quick-witted, just everything he'd want in a convention guest. He was great at events. He was brilliant with the fans, and I think a lot of us considered him a friend. And so, obviously, given that, it's been very tough.
And Mark, you had the opportunity in the past as well to help him get into the Boba Fett costume once again.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times, and that was always kind of a big honor, or at least I felt it was, especially the first time, because I honestly didn't know how to do it, because I've never actually worn a Boba Fett costume. I never even considered out how one put together, but I was just around at the time, and they saw me in costume, so like, can you give us a hand? I was like, yeah, sure. So we muddled through. So, but yeah, it was such a nice guy, and Maureen was such a lovely lady. So, it's difficult, sad news, unfortunately.
And Mark, of course, you did the whole trip to Celebration Europe in Germany, and Maureen and Jeremy accompanied you on that trip as well.
Yeah, that was wow. I think when I look back at all the things I've been involved with Star Wars, that's right, very, very on the list, because that was a brilliant trip that we did back in the day, Caravan of the Force. But to have Maureen and Jeremy with us, and to be able to spend time not just talking about Star Wars, because that gets dry pretty quick, to be perfectly honest, but just chit chatting about his family and his grandkids and his kids, and banter, really, just talking about silly stuff. And that it's funny, I've been thinking about it the last few days, and the one thing that sticks in my head more than anything was we were in Belgium, and I'd gone down to the bar. I think James stayed in the room, and I said, I just fancy a quick half, and I'm going to go down for a quick drink. And I went down to the bar, and Jeremy came into the bar. We just sat at the bar and had just a little glass of Belgian beer each, and just probably talked about Tottenham Hotspur, probably. I can't honestly remember, but it was just nice having that little moment. So yeah, very, very fortunate, but yeah, terribly sad.
I kind of remember him from, I think it was the first celebration in Florida, which amazingly was my first convention in probably 6-7 years at that point, because I kind of just sort of backed away from the whole convention scene for a while. And I didn't have Jeremy's autobiography. And obviously, being a book collector, I thought there's a perfect time to get it from him. Nice little hardback slipcase edition signed by him. And so I met him at Celebration out there. Hadn't met him ever before, or his wife, and had a really lovely experience where they couldn't have been more welcoming. And they found it hilarious that someone from the UK had come all the way to Florida to get his autograph, considering all the conventions across the UK that he does. And but yeah, it was a great experience. They were, as a couple, so down to earth, so welcoming, so friendly, and it was a privilege for me to get to know him a little bit better through you guys as well in later years with First Jedi News, and obviously with Fantatrack stuff as well. And I just thought there was a really nice bit that you added to the article this week on Fantatrack's sort of Jeremy's retirement statement, which I thought kind of said everything about him. And the whole situation, I think, was summed up quite beautifully what it all meant to him and his wife as well.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
Just that he was a unique guy, and I think whatever sphere he'd have been in, if he'd have been a professional footballer, he would have been one of those guys people would have gone, what a gent. You know, whatever arena he would have plied his trade in, people would have thought well of him. And I'm thankful that he just happened to turn his eye to Star Wars, and it came his way via Robert Watts, his half brother. Yeah, he won't be forgotten. He won't be forgotten.
No.
Yeah, I kind of think that he's added something a little bit special to the Boba Fett character, and that every actor that's played that role, or Jango Fett, or so on, all have this wonderful connection to the fans, and I kind of think it sort of stems through Jeremy and the way he's almost educated them a little bit there on the fan circuit as well. So yeah,
John Morton's written a wonderful piece. Sorry, Bri, he's written a wonderful piece over at Boba Fett Fan Club remembering Jeremy, and that's well worth checking out if you've not read it. Yeah,
definitely. Moving on, another topic here in the UK. I'm going to play a little video here from our friend Jez Allinson, who's been doing a fundraiser, and he was on BBC News today, so hopefully this works. And let's hopefully, come on, Brian, let's get the sound going. Nothing ever works when you want it to. Here we go. Let's try again. It's not going to play the sound, is it? I knew this. No. Technology just when you need it to work. Anyway, he was in the BBC and he said lots of lovely words. He's been doing this Stormtrooper run all year, struggling through lockdown, through injuries and everything. And it was all supposed to culminate at Pinewood. Oh, Elstree, sorry. Elstree. But obviously with lockdown rules changed overnight, it moved to RAF Benson, which is where he works. And at this time talking, he's raised £24,672 of his original 14,000 target, which is really quite incredible.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's not easy feat running miles. You got all credit to him for doing that.
Yeah, he's certainly put the miles in. You couldn't ask for more from a charity fundraiser. He got the bit between his teeth, and I mean, I was there when he did his big run, and that did finish at Pinewood. Funny enough, me and Ruth were there with many others watching him go over the line, and good grief, he was absolutely wiped out. So he's gone above and beyond. I'm very quite proud to call him a friend. To be honest, he's quite inspiring for a fatty like me.
Yeah. Obviously, go to stormtrooperrun.com and or this address. You can donate to the project as well. And gutted I couldn't play the video, but there we go. Technology.
We'll get it on Fanta. We'll get it on Fanta. Yeah.
You can see the actual videos actually on the Fanta Tracks Instagram page. So Instagram.com/Fanta Tracks. Moving on to the first topic of things in 2020 that have gone wrong, other than the playing of that video, was people's reactions to the Rise of Skywalker, and the year started very negatively. I think for a large element of Star Wars fans, not everybody, but a good bunch. And then the script for Duel of the Fates leaked, which was Colin Trevorrow's take on what Episode 9 could have and should have potentially been. And we all got a chance to read it if we so wished. Mr. Newbold, did you check it out at the time, and what do you recall of it that you think might have changed people's perspectives maybe?
Well, it's really one of those what ifs, but the dominoes fell in a different direction, so it wouldn't have come out the way it did. So there was a lot of big swings in there that I think ultimately would have been nice one, Rob, would have been sort of whittled down into other avenues. So he was really punching big. It felt to me, looking at the script, it was going for big elements that would have, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have come out the way that, for example, Mark made a great point when we talked about making tracks about how in some of the artwork it was, it was like. So you did actually make one good point, Mark. Yeah, I think it was Rey was wearing like a Luke Jedi outfit sort of thing, and it was like that's not what she would have worn in the film. That was to give an idea of what the character was and where it would have gone, and it was you know what I mean? It was just sort of play setter stuff. So I don't think it would have come out quite the way we saw it, but nevertheless, some of the stuff, I mean, Boyega seemed more stoked by Duel of the Fates than he did by Rise of Skywalker. So, but then he would, because his character was probably more prominent in that. But I would have liked to have seen it. I'm not knocking Rise of Skywalker. I think it was fine. I enjoyed it, but this felt like it was going to be different. I'm quite curious to see this.
And Mr. Malcaster, what was your take?
Pretty much the same. I mean, it felt, at least from a concept art, a lot darker than what I even think Rise of Skywalker was. And there was some stunning visuals and stuff from, like, you know, the Rebel pilot getting executed on Coruscant and stuff like that. And it did seem like there was a lot of nice kind of like pulling in of elements, like, you know, going back to Coruscant and stuff like that. So that would have been quite interesting. But yeah, it's difficult because, you know, sometimes, you know, as we might talk about later, you know, there's always stuff that could have been. It's just whether or not when it comes out, if it actually kind of met the expectations. You know, it may have actually not even felt like, you know, at all connected to the previous two sequel trilogy films. We don't know. We don't know how differently, you know, it would have gone. And with that in mind, makes it hard. And it's always been what it could have been. It would have been fun to have been able to have done something with it. But yeah, I mean, Paul's right, you know, absolutely. You know, Rise of Skywalker had to just finish off what the other two films left him to do. So, you know, and in some respects, I think they did that pretty well, you know, pretty darn well. You know, I mean, I don't think any of us could really have done any better, you know, at least from a story point, you know, so, you know, hats off to them. But yeah, you know, this I would like to see this a bit like we saw the original Star Wars kind of screenplays as comics. I would be quite interested to see this as a comic run, like a 6-episode comic run, just to kind of get a real kind of better idea of like the story beats and stuff. I think that might be quite fun if Marvel are up for it and if Disney's feeling brave enough. So yeah,
there was a few elements of the script I quite liked. I liked the whole sequence with Finn sort of leading a ground battle on Coruscant. I think visually that could have looked amazing in films.
Yeah.
I liked that that he and Rose broke into the Jedi Temple. That could have had some nice callbacks in there. I preferred Rey Solana to Rey Skywalker. A little bit more grey, redefining what a Jedi is. Could have played nicely to future of Star Wars. What else did I like? Kylo Ben being haunted by a Force ghost of Luke gave Luke a bigger role in the film.
Yeah.
And the Knights of Ren having darksabers, which I thought was a different take to it. I can understand how there's elements of the script that maybe that wasn't the direction that they wanted to go, because he was redefining a lot of what Star Wars was going to be post-9. So maybe that's part of the element why they backed away from his direction. But yeah, I think it could one day in the future become a adapted comic, but they're going to have to get first the actual comic series, which is never dropped.
Carlos just pointed that out. Yeah, exactly. It seems crazy that it's all there and done, and it's not.
They just haven't done it.
At least coming out as a trade. Yeah.
But I think someone made a cartoon of it as well, so you can go on YouTube if you want to check the cartoon out. Have something of a laugh. Next disaster for 2020, it didn't happen. Anaheim. Supposed to be in August 27th to the 30th, but instead we were all locked up at home. But good news, when there's not 2020, there is 2022. So someone had to Photoshop that. So Celebration will be coming back August 18th to 21st, 2022. I think at this point it's looking like it was a wise decision not to make it next year.
Yeah.
And with this whole slate of what's coming to Disney Plus, 2022 is looking like a pretty jam-packed year. You guys, what was your thoughts on missing out on Celebration?
I was gutted because it's always great fun and it's a good chance to catch up with friends and have a bit of an adventure and a bit of a laugh. And it would have been, like Carla says, it would have been great to see us all there together. It would have been fun. And we always make the best of it. You know, it's hard work generally. We're running a table or doing stuff, but yeah, again, Rob makes a good point. My bank balance and my credit card bills didn't miss it. But yeah, it would have been fun. I was supposed to be running the podcast stage again, so I was very much looking forward to that, and that was all in the process of happening. So fingers crossed I'll get to do that again in 2022. But given my technical I would probably broke it in anyway, so it's probably a good thing it got cancelled.
Looking ahead, something slightly more positive on this spin of the show, on this negative show that we're having. What do you look forward to for 2022? What do you want to see up on the stage?
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Mando season 4 being announced. The second book of Boba Fett. I mean, there's so much. The potential, the potential's there. I mean, I had a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago about, and we talked about it on Making Tracks actually, about how there's none of the new projects seem to be going anywhere near the sequel trilogy, and that they probably need to give a bit of distance, because generally the trilogies do, don't they? I'd say the Clone Wars was, well, actually thinking on it, it wasn't. I mean, the Clone Wars came only 3 years after Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Ewoks and Droids came only 2 years after Jedi. So generally, we've got coverage was the year after. So it is kind of an aberration if they don't go there. So I hope they do something. It would seem terribly wasteful to build Galaxy's Edge in the sequel trilogy era and then not do anything live action to do with it, you know. So that's what I'd like to see. That would be something I'd be curious, because there's definitely, you know, good stories to be mined there. Yes, Kits to Black Series pick, a great call.
Yeah, absolutely. Kit, maybe like a double pack, Kitster and Wald. I reckon that's what we're in need
yes.
of. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but no, I'm kind of with you. I think, you know, yeah, there's so much coming up as well. So you could just think that like Celebration 22 is just going to be packed full of just like new series and reveals and stuff, and you know, it will be yeah, and that would be even better. Yeah, a Solo 2 announcement, but maybe that's where Lando's headed. We don't know. So yeah.
Agreed.
So, but that would be. And the thing is, you know, celebrations, panels aside, it's all about meeting people and catching up with old friends and stuff. So it's always a good, fun time to be had. So yeah, hopefully we'll get out there without a mask. So yeah.
Next thing that didn't happen this year, Game of Thrones guys, David Benioff and DB Weiss, quitting on Star Wars and taking up a lovely lucrative contract with Netflix for a whole bunch of projects there. At the time that they stepped down, Kathleen Kennedy did make the point that she would hope to, when they were free at some point down the line, they may rejoin the Star Wars journey. Not going to be anytime soon if it does happen at all. But yeah, they opted to walk away at that point, and things were pretty miserable in terms of Star Wars creative at that time, and very difficult to get writers and directors who actually stayed on projects. So this was another disappointing move, although some people did like the finale. The Game of Thrones did a pretty remarkable job in taking that books and making it into like a unbelievable world record beating TV project. So your guys' thoughts when they stepped away?
I was disappointed. I wanted to see what they did with it. I mean, like I say, to world build like that from Game of Thrones. I read the first book, oh, blimey, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was, and I'd forgotten most of it. So to watch it again as a TV series and then get beyond the books and do what they did, because I wonder if George Martin will ever get that final book out. It feels like it's never going to come. You know, I think it was brilliant. And again, it's a bit of a Rise of Skywalker situation. So how do you wrap this thing up? How, to everyone's satisfaction, when it's literally impossible, so just do what your gut tells you to do and go with it. I was very much looking forward to what they did, because I think, like I say, that world builder, I think in Star Wars, that is always the bedrock. That's what Mando's doing so well at the moment. You know, building its own sort of niche, and I think they would have done the same. So I hope they do come back at some point.
Yeah, well, good luck to them, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I mean, the last season of Game of Thrones was hit and miss, and yeah, the ending kind of, funny enough, polarized a lot of fans. Some loved it and some really hated it. So they pretty much fit quite well with Star Wars at the moment. So but at the same time, yeah, that's the thing. The key, what we need in Star Wars is solid world builders, because at this point we don't know what's being developed or what is going to happen after Episode 9. It's a blank canvas, really, to a degree. We need people to kind of be brave enough to kind of go and start kind of creating and shaping completely new eras. And obviously maybe they might have been able to have done something in the High Republic era. That was kind of, I think, where a lot of people's heads were at, because obviously the Game of Thrones tie-in and stuff. So yeah, no, absolutely, Paul. Yeah, endings are the hardest thing to do, and it doesn't matter. You can be a prog rock band, but if your ending is crap, it just doesn't matter, really, does it? So yeah, I think we'll see what happens, and obviously I'm interested to see what they actually come up with for Netflix, and if they do something completely different, or if they kind of stick to some kind of like similar kind of like fantasy genre kind of series. It'd be interesting to see where they go with what they're doing. So
they did make the comment that there was only so many hours in a day, and with that kind of attitude, you're not going to get a job at Fatha Tracks, that's for sure.
No, true.
But the other interesting comment they made was that the really highlight for them was getting to talk about Star Wars with George Lucas. And talking to George Lucas, another abandoned element of 2020 that came out was George Lucas's sequel plans. He'd came up with a concept where Leia would have been the focus of the 3 movies. It would have centered around the sort of political struggles of building a republic and the reconstructions of life after war. He suggested that Leia would end up being the chosen one. Maul would have been the central villain. He would have had Darth Talon, and a 14-year-old Jedi called Winky. So George at his best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Your thoughts on George's sequel plans and the way things sort of panned out for his connection to the sequel trilogy?
Go on, Mark. You go first.
I mean, there's some parts that sound really interesting, but then there's a slight kind of alarm bells kind of going off a little bit when you read about like the fact that Leia's not the fact that Leia's going to be at the center of a political kind of intrigue and kind of like politics stuff, but that there seemed to be quite a lot of that heavily influenced in this sequel trilogy, which I think could potentially just put a lot of people off. It also, as we know, Lucas is kind of quite good at kind of making comments and commentary on politics in his work. So you could imagine that by the time Episode 9 came out, what kind of crazy orange-skinned emperor could possibly be kind of running the galaxy at that point. So but there are points. I mean, there are bits of it. I really liked the notion that you've got Darth Maul and he's running the underworld, and obviously just to see what he would have done with Darth Talon, whether or not he was going to take the whole kind of Twi'lek kind of Sith aesthetic over, or if he was going to just kind of, he just liked to name and was then going to completely reimagine the character. But yeah, the Book of Winky, that could have been a great Disney Plus follow-up series. So I think, as always, bit like with Colin Trevorrow's kind of screenplay, there's bits that'll probably work really well and bits which don't, and none of it we're likely to see, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough, because if he wanted to put Leia as the focus of the trilogy, which would have been very interesting given the post-war idea he had, which would have been fascinating, real life would have got in the way. Carrie would have still passed away. He would have still had to do a right turn to make it work, just like they did with the last 2 episodes of the trilogy. Anyway, it was going to be Han's film first, then Luke, then Leia's was the way they kind of played it, and it all got tweaked and shifted. So I think to many ways they were so unlucky in that the original trilogy, all the performers, the actual on-screen people, made it through. They didn't have to recast, they didn't have to do a left turn, and the same with the prequels. But with the sequels, obviously losing one of your principal actors affected everything in more ways than just what you saw on screen. So yeah, it would have had the same challenges in that sense.
I do wonder actually what he would have done. Would he have, in his pragmatic sense, would he have considered recasting, or would actually he, you know, being George, would he have just gone, let's just try and do this all digitally, you know? So it would be interesting to see like his approach and what he kind of decided to do with it. Possibly not, maybe so dissimilar to what we got. Who knows? So
yeah, and obviously that photo there, happy moment for George. He's on the set of The Mandalorian season 2. Got to meet the child, cradle the child, and was a lovely photo that Favreau posted. But also recently revealed that he met Ahsoka as well when he was on set. That so that would have been a nice moment for him to see a character that he helped develop through Clone Wars animation with Dave Filoni, and seeing Dave Filoni executive producing, directing, writing for The Mandalorian, and seeing that character brought from animation to the live screen.
Yeah, to think that he was just that Rosario Dawson was literally just left of shot sort of thing when he saw that picture, which was a while ago now. It's kind of a bit of a head mangler in a good way, but yeah, I just think, you know, him bringing in Darth Talon, which was she from Legacy, the Legacy series?
Legacy series, yeah.
You know, and Maul coming back was very much a Clone Wars thing, and you know, he was more interested in what you would consider the peripheral stuff than maybe we realised, you know. And I think now the TV era, he's probably watching. He's always going to have a hand in it to a degree, but just being him. But I would imagine he's probably watching it really very closely and with great interest, as a politician once said.
To coin a phrase,
obviously, Jon Favreau there, and it's a good point just now, I think, to head over to Jabba's court so we can talk about The Mandalorian. So, episode 16, or chapter 16, The Rescue. Mando, Boba, Cara Dune, Fennec Shan, Bo-Katan, Cosca Reeves. Team up, it should say.
Team up?
Well, it wasn't tame, we'll call that. To rescue Grogu, and a certain Jedi made an unexpected return towards the end of the episode as well. Guys, initial takes on chapter 16.
My first initial take, Brian, is work for you, because now Jabba's court is completely different. You're going to have to change all those pictures in that nice little intro, because it's Boba Fett's throne now, isn't it?
It's very true.
And poor old Blob Fortuna meets at a sticky end. First reactions was that I needed a new box of Kleenex because of the eyes. I was blown away.
Clarification.
Thank you. I was blown away. I couldn't believe half of what happened. Stop raising your eyebrows. Half of what happened.
I was thinking that the Twilight girl was pretty fully clothed, so.
The stuff that we're seeing, stuff that, you know, if you sat down with the pen and paper at the start of the season, I mean, all of season 2, really, if you'd sat down and gone, well, we're going to get this guy and that character and this ship and that, and blah, 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 and this will get referred to and that'll get pulled in, you'd have gone, yeah, no way. And it would have looked like crazy fanfic, but I think the execution of it has been so good that they've made it work. You know, they've brought Star Wars movies to television, and now really they can do what they like. So yeah, I'm rambling. I loved it. I was happy as a clam.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I can't express how happy I was to see Master Skywalker, and kind of pleased that actually they didn't kind of stretch out the whole kind of Grogu trying to find his people kind of for like another season. I thought it was a good time to wrap that story point up, at least for the time being. But yeah, it was all action. You know, whoever thought that we'd see the Slave One chasing a Tidarian shuttle? You know, or even that actually the Slave One has an iron cannon. I didn't even realize it had one equipped. So, you know, fair play. But yeah, it was just a solid episode, and the thing that I think really stands out, like you said about how like if you write out all those characters who were here and who kind of made a feature, I've not had one complaint from any non-Star Wars fan who watches that show to say that they didn't understand who that character was or didn't quite get where they were coming from. It was all really well constructed so that actually those who aren't steeped in the lore and the backstories kind of, they don't necessarily know the ins and outs, but they know enough about the character to get on and crack on and enjoy the episodes. So I think we've done an amazing job this season.
Did either of you forget to watch the credits initially?
No, I'm Marvel trained, so I always stay to the end of the credits.
Yeah, I mean, because the first thing that flagged it for me was the fact there was no concept art. So I thought, okay, and then normally they do that. What's that? Hands down, the best 10 minutes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Paul says it. I mean, and the other thing was actually they didn't do that annoying squeeze they do with the credits, where they kind of like bring up like put the credits right down in the bottom corner. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sit and actually look at who's done what, and then it just started, and I was like, oh my god! I had to call the girlfriend back into the room because she buggered off, but so she gets no brownie points for that.
Good point that just came up there, though. Seeing the Death Star droid walk through the corridor, Luke crushing that droid, that was the bit that told me that was just awesome. Because those droids, those Dark Troopers looked phenomenal. Can't believe they're doing that sort of quality, just pinpoint accurate. But when he crushed that last one, was just sweet.
I'm not convinced it's Luke.
I know where you're going with this, Brian.
Because the left Dr. P, the clone engineer on the ship, could easily have made a call out to one of his clones. What if one of his clones was Lukey? Obviously from the Empire's coming into this element here. It could be a nice little swerve. It's the right era. Could be a nice little swerve. And it could then thus mean that Mando has to recover the child because the child's still in peril.
Again.
There you go. Yeah. Jonas Kaboth, we would like to see him. Season 3.
I'd be interested.
Why not?
Yeah. Bring them all in.
They mentioned Thrawn. His name's out there.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah. I think everything's on the table, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we think we're going to see more Luke then?
I don't.
No.
I don't.
Maybe not.
But then, are they going to get rid of Grogu altogether?
I think Grogu will end up in the Ahsoka series. I think the characters are now interchangeable. They can move. If they, even with season 3. Okay, when we did Making Tracks pretty much straight after watching the episode, I think we both thought that Book of Boba was the title of season 3, like Rise of the Bounty Hunters was the title of season 2 Clone Wars. And now I think we all realise that Book of Boba is its own thing and season 3 Mando is its own thing. But nevertheless, these characters are all part of that Mandoverse that Bob Iger was talking about. And I think they could appear in each other's shows. So, yeah, it's quite possible.
Exactly. And let's be fair, a little bit of extra merchandise money is not a bad thing.
Never hurts.
Yeah.
Obviously, Grogu's been showing a little bit. He's been showing a little bit of elements of the dark side. His little Grogu. Could it be that he's the first one that Luke kills in their sleep?
What do you reckon? Put a pillow over his head or something?
Yeah. That's where he
gets his
Jedi killing bloodthirst from. Is Grogu.
Or conversely, maybe he's the one who actually turns Kylo Ren. Maybe he's the one who turns Ben Solo. There you go.
Very true.
I can't even not sell that. Brilliant.
Moff Gideon kind of ended the series in a low point, knocked out by Cara Dune, looks to be getting arrested and jailed. Do we expect to see him back, or do we think he's kind of done?
No, he's not done.
Nah.
I think he's coming back.
Yeah, he's for me really grown this season because, I don't know, I wasn't quite sold on the performance last season, but then actually this season has really kind of solidified it, and I just really appreciated it a lot more. And just that real clever thing of he knows that really, if Din Djarin picks up that Darksaber, Bo-Katan's meant to, take it off him in a fight or something. So, I mean, I know there's a little bit of kind of potential contradictory kind of canon whereby Sabine gave it to her last time in Rebels, but I think that's possibly been weighing on her mind, and possibly maybe that's why she wasn't able to unify the Mandalorian people, because she didn't actually earn it and she was given it. So maybe this time, they're going to have a fight. Whether or not she has to kill him or not is, remains to be seen. But I think he set something up because we don't know what happens 5 minutes after those doors close, or a second after those doors close. We're still in a stalemate. They still haven't kind of decided on what's going to happen. We don't know where they go from there. So we might just pick up season 3 of Mandalorian at the same place. We could just see the X-Wing fly off on the bridge. Yeah, but awkward kind of right, who goes first kind of moment. So.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on the portrayal of Luke? Because I didn't like the fact that they changed the fighting style from what is Luke's fighting style. It was a bit over the top, I felt, for the character. And I also had issues with the way that they'd animated the lips on the character. I wasn't entirely impressed on that. I thought, as a still image, it looked fantastic, but in terms of an animated face, I wasn't blown away.
I think the fighting style I can forgive, because it is sort of five plus years after Jedi, so he's been through stuff. So I forgive him that. I get that. But I do take your point about the CG, in the sense of they did something online the other day where they took the Rogue One Tarkin and then they what's that app what is it now, the face swapping. Deep fake, well done. Yeah. They deep faked the Rogue One Tarkin and it just looked completely like Peter Cushing. Now, again, it's 4 or 5 years later, so technology moves on. And there's just a little bit of me thinking, if that can be so close and so almost getting out of the uncanny valley touch, I just wonder what tech, I wonder what tech they're using, because there was bits of it that looked phenomenal and bits of it that, it was all around the mouth. The mouth didn't really work. And I don't know whether Hamill was on set for that and they were acting to Mark on set. We'll find out on Christmas Day in Disney Gallery, I'm sure, or how they did it. I'm very curious how they did it. In the moment, I was completely odd. I didn't see that. It's subsequent viewings where I've been a bit more critical, because, you can get past it, and we're Star Wars fans and we're supposed to be critical, aren't we?
Absolutely. They've kind of left a blank canvas.
It was...
Sorry, on you go, Mark.
No, you carry on. No, I was just going to say it was one of those things whereby I kind of, I was so excited about seeing Luke that it didn't really kind of dawn on me until I kind of watched it a second time. But actually, the CGI wasn't quite as on par as I thought it was probably hoping to be. But when you get over that, because it's not the CGI that's telling the story, it's the emotions and it's what the character's actions doing. So that, I think, was more important. But it didn't look too different actually from a Battlefront 2 Luke that we saw for that cutscene, interestingly, which is a bit curious. So let's see what they kind of they give us on Christmas Day at the gallery.
Yeah, a few people did say, they should have used Sebastian Stan, which is a thing that's been sort of a fanish thing that's been floating around Twitter and such. Yeah. But he's rather busy making Falcon and Winter Soldier, so I don't suppose he was particularly available to take on another role. So,
yeah, I mean, there is just risk, though. I was thinking about this bizarrely whilst I was in the shower the other day. Is that actually, with all this de-aging techniques and stuff like that, are we potentially limiting or sacrificing the fact that some of these characters could get recast and potentially we could get better or newer performances, right? But instead of just relying on kind of technology to kind of keep our older kind of talent alive, so to speak, and in their prime, is there a point actually where we kind of go, let's recast a certain character? So I'm just wanting to see what the chat box is about. So, hi Sam.
It was a good point about R2, the angle. I get what Paul's going at now. The angle is usually tips to drop a hologram, so there could be something in that.
They've left something of a blank slate for season 3. And obviously we now know there's going to be the Ahsoka and New Rangers of the Republic, and there's going to be some kind of combined story. Throw into the mix the Book of Boba Fett, and we could have quite a lot of different things coming together. As the next series starts later, it's going to be December for Mando and Boba. We don't yet know Ahsoka and New Rangers, but I'm guessing into 2022 for them. Is there anything that you want to see in season 3?
Oh wow! I mean, where have we got left? I mean, you've got Din and I've got a spot there. You've got Cara taking Moff Gideon back. There's a story there. You've got Luke taking Grogu, presumably to train him. There's a story there. What does Din do next after his encounter with Cara? Boba now on the throne of Jabba's palace with Fennec. What do I want to see next? I don't know. I mean, they've set it up nicely. One of the quotes that came up a minute ago was really on the nose, because Star Wars being Star Wars is one thing, and then Marvel having Spider-Man meets, you know, Captain America is a big deal in a comic generally. You know, it's an event outside of a team comic, of course. But in Star Wars, it's never quite felt like that. And now they're almost making it so that if Din suddenly turns up in Ahsoka, people will be like, "Whoa!" You know, it will become an event, and that's the Motherstone, I think, for me. I think if they can get that excitement of characters crossing over and coming into each of the shows, you're making event television, and I think they're getting towards that. I think we're still a couple of years away. So when they do this big storyline where all the, you know, Ahsoka, Book of Boba, Mando, Legend of the Rangers all starts to, Rangers of the New Republic rather, all starts to come together. I'm thinking of Babylon 5. You know, it becomes, you know, it does become an event. You know, if they do it like a Defender style thing, like Marvel did on Netflix, and pulls it together into something like that.
We need a female stormtrooper with a London-esque accent.
We do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're all for that. Yeah. As I start to lose my words, let's go for one last drink, and we'll have a last round at the cantina. So, the Book of Boba Fett was announced right at the very end of Mando Season 2. So I'm asking this week if you could gift Boba, look, I'm spelling's terrible this week. Boba Fett, one Star Wars book for Christmas. What would it be and why? Can you tell this show was prepped at the last minute?
I buy my dictionary.
Yeah,
I was going to say, yeah, spell checker.
Spell checker, Grammarly, hyphens, feels.
What book would you buy, Boba Fett? Good grief. I don't know. What does he need? I mean, he's repainted his armor, so he's handy at stuff like that. So he doesn't need like a self-help book. He's obviously had time to heal after his time in the Sarlacc pit. So I don't know. Maybe like a meditation book or something. Maybe Joe Wicks is welcome for everybody. The Jedi Mind, you know, Amy Ratcliffe's book that might be quite helpful. Cheap plug. I don't know. What do you think, Mark? He said, throwing over the hot potato.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? When Brian kind of gave us a heads up on this, I was like, "What the hell can you give the bounty hunter who's got absolutely nothing and also everything at the same time?" I kind of feel like he needs some kind of like self-help books. Jedi Master Quiz book. Just because I kind of feel like he's kind of got some like parenting issues kind of going on. He does kind of like bring up his dad quite often in this series. So I just wonder if he needs some kind of like books on like, you know, I don't know, grief counseling or something like that, how to kind of move on and stop dwelling in the past a little bit. So what's that? A book on Tatooine, as that's how he pronounces it. Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually. That's a very good point, because it is a Tatooine. He just, because of the accent, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I've gone for this. That's the way to kick off 2021.
Oh, That's a good, you've got
nice.
that already. Well
I've
done.
got that
Oh,
already.
excellent.
Friends
Good
in high
man.
places. Friends in high
Yeah, we
places.
expect a review then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High Republic. Do you think Boba Fett would be interested in a little bit of history? Get some
I think
knowledge from the past?
Yeah, I think he likes his history, doesn't he? He seems to know a bit. So why not?
Was there Mandalorians back in the High Republic era?
I would imagine
know?
so.
Yeah, I expect so.
Yeah.
I would imagine so.
The
The Mandalore Wars go right back, don't they? Yeah.
he may find a distant relative back there that he can take some inspiration from.
Boba Gett.
Eric Fett.
I'll get a stick there from Phil. Yeah, I'm showing off. So obviously we've got Boba Fett. He's going to have his own TV show. He's there with Fennec. He's taken over Jabba's court. Are we expecting his series to be very much bounty hunter-esque? From the title, I'm thinking he's got a list of enemies and he's going to be working his way down that list.
His hit list, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that'd be fascinating. You know, if he can take out, well, he did, didn't he? You saw him do it, and it's not the place it used to be. So he's obviously, and being Fett, cookbook's great on it. Being Fett, you know, he would probably know the back doorways in, and you know the kind of character he is. So getting him was probably no big deal. But nevertheless, yeah, for him to be in that position. That's. Oh, I mean, again, it's 6 years after Jedi, and we don't really know the lay of the land post, you know, Sarlacc pit, sail barge explosion. But you know, you've got to wonder what influence that operation has now without Jabba being in charge of it. So, but Fett is a name, isn't it? We said this on Making Tracks. You know, it's Boba Fett. That's what I still think. Well, I don't think it now. I think the story's moved beyond the opportunity for it to happen. I thought for a while that maybe Din would take on the Fett armor, and I don't think that's going to happen now. Because I didn't see Fett being a permanent fixture. So, happily, I'm wrong.
We did, as we discussed Lucas's sequel earlier. Part of it was with the Maul character, was Maul taking on the crime lords, and the Hutt's been a major factor again in the galaxy. And had quite a big focus into the crime world, so I'm guessing that's the direction they'll go with that. But you've got to make it very different from the Mandalorian, especially if they're going to be airing side by side. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go.
They've made Mando a sympathetic hero, haven't they? They've made Din a sympathetic character, especially in that final scene with the mask off, and I mean, God, couldn't get more emotional than that. So you wouldn't tend to see Fett, even though he's a more worldly wise, mellower guy, really, until that final post-credit scene. He ain't mellowed at all. He's playing the game how he's playing the game. That was pretty full on. And Fennec as well, who we can learn a lot more about in the Bad Batch. So
yeah.
And this week's show, we've obviously cast our eyes back over 2020 and the year that we're all going to write off and look forward to next year. So next week's show, we're going to look forward to 2021, and throughout the Star Wars franchise, we're going to have a look and see what we want to see from 2021 and what we're most looking forward to. So I hope you'll all join us for that. And thanks to the two Marks for joining me again this week on Good Morning Tatooine.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at FanthaTracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow FanthaTracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.